Hey there, Synergizers, and welcome back to another episode of the Creating Synergy podcast. My name is Daniel Franco, and today we have Chris Wilson on the show, who is also known as the Stress Scientist. So Chris's background in coaching and mentoring packs a mean punch when it comes to working with elite performers. This covers the military, elite sports, performing arts, and what he calls corporate athletes. Spending the early part of his career developing future leaders, Chris identified that a necessary part of the success plan is to improve the individual's performance capacity. And this can be achieved by adapting the individual's capacity in three key areas, this being the physical, the mental, and the emotional. So Chris works with these leaders to help them develop these three components and reduce the risk of burnout. So now more than ever, we are seeing that leaders in the business world are dealing with the constant cognitive fog and the feeling of Groundhog Day that can no longer be accepted as the new norm. This is why Chris built an accelerated program that supports all of us that go all in and those who are true candidates that face the risk of burnout. In this episode, Chris and I touch on his journey from arriving to Australia from the UK and setting up his first business in his backyard, to his current work and mission of helping people see the early warning signs and to avoid burnout. Chris shares with us in this podcast his research and findings around what is burnout, is productivity related to stress, is there a correlation between burnout and the need to please, COVID and the stress burnout that is associated with that, the stress challenges of working from home and then also returning to work, and some of the tips and tricks on how to manage and avoid burnout. If you love the episode, which I know you will, and you want to hear more episodes of some wonderful leaders and experts in their field, then be sure to push that subscribe button and check out our weekly podcasts. If you'd love to get in contact with me, feel free to do so at any time at admin@synergyiq.com.au or check us out at synergyiq.com.au and find us on all the social media outlets. Welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. My name is Daniel Franco, your host, and today we got Mr. Chris Wilson on the show, the Stress Scientist. Welcome to the show, mate.
Oh, thanks, mate. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I want to learn a little bit about you to start off with. Stress Scientist, it's a pretty unique term.
It is. It's a term that I grabbed hold of when someone said it to me, actually over a beer.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Because
no better way to start.
All the great ideas, surely. So it was a matter of me explaining what I do, because this whole horrible question of what is it you do?
Yeah.
And I was doing research in the UK. We were looking at stress and immune markers to look at multi-stressor environments. Is the athlete at risk or does it impact performance? And so when I brought it over here, I now set up a business called iPro, which stands for individual profiling, and we were mapping athletes and working with the military. And then they said, "Oh, you're a stress scientist." Yeah. And I was like, "No, not really." And then it just went, and then the business started, and everything started from there.
Yeah. So do you have a PhD in anything, or is it just sort of a play on words with this? Yeah.
I let mine go.
Yeah.
I'd lined up a PhD in the UK, and then there's a backstory there. So I was in full-time education, but I was a full-time teacher. Yeah. We just had a new baby, Isla, and
that's my daughter's name. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Great names. Great minds think alike.
Jeez, man. What can we say?
Kids' names. Good start to the podcast.
We should have married each other. And what happened there was we were both tired. Yeah. And so we'd both been around Australia together. I said, why don't we go to Australia? Because, I get 6 weeks off for holidays. And we come over here and someone offered sponsorship. And I was like, no, not for me, thanks. I'm all lined up. I'm good.
What's sponsorship look like in that respect? Why would someone say, stay over here?
Yeah, so
if you're on a holiday.
Well, I knew people here.
Okay.
I was setting up franchises and stuff last time I was here. And my wife has been 20 plus years as a trainer in real estate.
Okay.
And so that's why we ended up down on the coast.
Yeah, brilliant.
And Kate works for the blue team. We call them those.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. So you've come over to Australia, set up a business,
Hmm.
and tell us how you became obsessed with stress. Like, what is it about stress that ticks all the boxes for you?
Hmm. What I had to set up a logistics business because we're in a regional town in South Australia. There wasn't. No, I'm from an education background, so I was looking for work in education. And then I realized pretty quick that Kate, being the main sponsor, was the full-time worker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to find work around looking after Isla, which was, she was 18 months when we come over. And so I set up a logistics business from the back of my house down in the Florio.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm setting up distribution channels to universities and to sporting clubs and what have you. And then all of a sudden, a few consultants started to reach out and said, "Hey, you can map stress. You can quantify stress." I was like, "Yep. We use biomarkers in the body, and we can set up cortisol profiles and IgA, which is your first line defense immune system." And they said, "Hey, can we use that?" Let me get that right. So they said, "Can we use that?" I was like, "Yeah, of course you can." So I set up this whole relationship. Went, "It's great, but we don't really know what the data means." But, okay, let me talk you through that. And in the end, it was, "Why don't you just come in and talk to our clients about the data?"
Yeah.
And that is how I got into corporate world.
There you go.
Hmm.
And so, what is it that you do now for businesses and help them out?
So the term I use is stress mapping.
Yeah.
So we're trying to identify risk to the individual, and then risk to the business. And there's costs associated with that. I purposely, the language I use is all performance based, because when I was getting drawn into these conversations around stress, mental health, Chris, we got problems in our teams, and that's not me.
Yeah.
There are specialists, counselors, there's beautiful people out there that support teams and individuals in that space. So I really needed to focus on how we can use these markers to look at capacity and performance.
Excellent. So what were you doing with the sporting teams and the military at that time?
Yeah, so in sport, we look at something called readiness to train, and we can use the biomarkers to be able to identify from a physiological point of view whether you're overtraining. So if we're overloading an athlete, we'll see physiological regression in your biomarkers. I said, this way. And that means we can identify and then regress the training load. So you can imagine that we map out a training program for teams, and then the whole team follows that program. Where we found was there was a lack of interdisciplinary approach to, is the nutritionist talking to the physiologist, is talking to the performance coach, and how do we individualize the training load so we reduce the risk of injury.
Yeah, amazing. So that, like, I think what's going through my head is that there's so many different versions of stress, isn't it? I mean, stress is just to put something under pressure. I don't know the exact terminology or the dictionary meaning, but I think like put something under stress means it's under some sort of pressure. You also are specializing in the burnout and obviously the risk of burnout, given that our listener base is of the corporate world. Can we deep dive into like what is the actual definition of burnout?
Yeah. So if we talked about the World Health, WHO, they talk about it a chronic stress load, a workplace stress, which is so broad and difficult to manage. Now, what does that mean? And we'll go into COVID, I'm sure, and working from home. But right now, that term alone means that, our stress is mainly from work, which is simply not true. We've got environmental stress. We've got physical, mental, and emotional stress. We've got stresses that impact our physiology, and it's not just because of work. And so there's one conversation around what is the current use of a term for burnout, and then what is it? So in my terms, we say, burnout, you've run out of resources to be able to cope with demand. Now, those resources are anywhere from your physical, mental, and emotional capacity. Now, that term, I play in that space because I don't relationships are difficult. Money problems are difficult.
Mm.
Work is difficult
Mm.
sometimes, but it's not the only factor.
Yeah.
And the second part of that conversation, which I'm really trying to struggle with, how I change the language in our space, if we said corporate, in our space, is burnout.
Mm.
No? Oh, Chris, I'm feeling a little bit burnt out right now. Like, describe to me, what does that mean? Well, I'm just tired in the mornings. I don't have the energy. That's not burnout.
Mm.
People are self-diagnosing burnout. I'm burnt out right now. No, you're not.
No.
I have literally seen people who can't face the world. They are running empty. They can't get up in the morning. They're almost hiding under their bedclothes because they don't have what it takes to face putting their shoes on in the morning.
Mm.
Versus someone who is probably overwhelmed but not burnt out.
How do you get to the point of burnout? Like, what drives one? Like, if you're super busy and potentially unproductive, can that lead to stress, which leads to burnout? Like, how do you get there? Or is there so many ways that one can reach there?
It is. There's how do we get to burnout? Is we ignore our signs. Early warning signs are a broad term. Again, we look at physical, mental, and emotional early warning signs. How do you know you're getting stressed? And then we look at drivers beyond that. So, Chris, I can't stop working. I need the money. Versus, look, I really need to please my boss because they're putting a lot of pressure on me. All these factors means that we ignore the signs that we're struggling and we keep pushing. And we've got, we're humans. We can override. It doesn't matter. I don't need to do that. It's okay. And then before we know it, we've gone so far down the rabbit hole, it takes a long time to get back on track. That's as an individual. Now look at the impact that will have on our relationships, our self-care. So what tends to happen as we go down these lines is I don't have time to exercise. I don't have the energy to exercise. I haven't got time to see my kids because my kids are in bed. So I'm losing the emotional side of that, all the way to I don't have time to eat. I'm too busy. Now, when people are listening to this, they're going, what a ridiculous thing to say. I was talking to someone the other day and we're taking food supplements so we don't have to eat. And then we're taking supplements to keep us awake so we can get more work done. And it's not uncommon.
No.
And that's how we burn out.
What happens to the body in the burnout process? Like, when you say we're depleted of resources, and people can't get out of bed, is it like a reoccurring thing? I mean, there's a little bit of rest fix it. Like, I guess there's so many questions to come out of that one thing.
Let me get if I go with that. So, you're depleting resources. When I say resources, let's go for how the body will prioritize. Now, if I said to you cortisol steal, cortisol's primary role in the body is to mobilize energy without people getting flashbacks of high school. So we got this sympathetic nervous system and this parasympathetic. One accelerates, one decelerates. Now, the accelerative response, adrenaline and cortisol, their main role is to mobilize to fight or flight. I need energy to move fast. I need an immune system that's going to be able to fight infection if I get injured or, in the fight. Now, what tends to happen is we prioritize, it's a survival instinct, so we prioritize it. I will push all my resources towards my survival instinct because it's survival. When I'm doing keynotes or when I'm speaking to large groups of people, I talk about why. I'll just say it. So, if you were to own a pair of testicles, I own them. No, you don't have to have them on your body.
There's a few of us.
Yeah, well, I don't own mine. Anyway, so if you were to own a pair of testicles and you remain in what we call a high chronic stress state, you can lose up to 30% size in your testicles.
Yeah, well.
Because why would my body allocate resources for long-term planning? Why would I talk about keeping my gene pool alive when I need to get through the next 24 or 48 hours.
Mm.
So what I end up doing is I steal resources from that long-term planning, disease fighting, I don't know, gene pool,
Yep.
keeping my
Yep.
family heritage alive.
Yeah.
And I allocate it to getting through enough energy, high spikes in immune system, and getting high function in the brain. So it's a short-term plan.
Mm.
And so I'll allocate all these resources. I won't have adequate resources for other factors. And that's when we see the drop. Emotional regulation starts to drop. Executive cognitive function starts to drop. And then by the time we know it, we're in debt.
Mm.
And that debt takes a long time to pay back.
Mm.
I think that answers your question.
It absolutely does. I guess what's going through my head is it one of those things that keeps reoccurring? Like if you're prone to stress and burnout, like did you get it once and like chicken pox, it doesn't come back? Do you know what I mean? Like
No, actually, it's we would classify burnout as trauma.
yeah, wow.
And so if you were to experience burnout, then there's a high chance that it will come back quicker and bigger than last time. The shutdown of your systems in the body is pure defense.
Mm.
Like a forced reset. I can't keep going on like this. I'm going to shut the body down. And we create memory, and there is a fear that we go back down to that place, and the body will stop that quicker. So the idea is, what do we do with people who suffer from burnout? It's a long journey. My purpose in life is to stop people from getting to that point. That is it.
So if we're going to draw this back to businesses, right? And this might seem a really sort of a bit of a dead end question, but do businesses need to almost do their background research on someone before they hire them?
Ooh, okay.
To see whether they are susceptible to burnout or not. I mean, I think if we go down the path of having so many, if you're saying there's so many other ways, like it's not just work related, like whose description of stress is it's a work related, but yet someone's having money problems, therefore they're stressed about being able to pay their bills and their mortgage and put food on the table, therefore they come to work and they bring that angst to their workplace, then, it's a very, very thin thread that could be snapped at any moment by a leader who says something the wrong way. Is that's a concern for businesses in the whole process? This is one big
It's bubbling, boiling pot. Yeah.
It's a boiling pot.
So I don't know where to start with that question, to be honest with you.
I don't even know if it was a question.
Yeah.
It was. I think there's so much going on in that space. Is that businesses are responsible for people who have stress, but their home life could, like you just mentioned, could have so much more.
It's never one thing.
Yeah.
People want to know what it is. Is it the blue pill or the red pill?
Yeah.
And it's not. It's an accumulation of. So people can make poor choices in their financial decisions and put themselves in a lot of stress. I don't know. Let's talk about COVID. So we base our financial decisions upon our current situation. Then COVID comes along, and now I've got no income. I've got no, there's stress there. The thing is, what I'm trying to tackle. So when I go into organizations and corporations, and they go creating a new arm to the business, so we can map stress across workforces now, using cloud and IoT and what have you. So, people say, I don't want to know. I don't want to know if the stress levels of my workforce, because I'm liable from an insurance point of view.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one conversation. So, is the corporation at risk? The second one is, so what impact is that having on your business? Because you don't know. We all know about productivity and engagement, customer relations. Okay, critical decision making from your leaders, customer experience. We can go anywhere you like with this. High stress environments with high risk environments. So if people are highly stressed and they're working in, I don't know, construction or flying planes or driving buses, then why wouldn't you want to know? And so if I was to say, I don't like it, but in my brain, I always play with, I need that person to be their whole self. But I'm not just a worker. I'm not just a CEO or an exec level. I'm a dad. Me personally. I'm a brother, I'm a husband. I'm all those things. Now, work is a major factor in all of our lives. It's a lot of time in our day, and it takes a lot of resources to be able to be good at it. And so this whole disconnect between, well, home life is home life and work life is work life, that's completely gone.
No.
It's not real anymore.
No.
That's not even just talking about hybrid and working from home. I'm talking about the fact that now we've got a social responsibility to go, right, how do we look after our people? You're not employees anymore. You're people, and you're part of our teams. Well, I can keep going. So
You keep going, because
right.
this is important information, right?
Okay, so then we start to look at, well, what's going on right now in Australia? We've got talent shortage. And the cost to businesses right now, because they can't fulfill roles, they can't deliver on customer promises. We're waiting on projects, but we can't find people to come in. So we're overstretching our current people to get the work done. And the risk of burnout in these people is so high because we've got this lack of talent pool. So why don't you just look after the people you've got? Why don't we figure this out rather than burning them out and trying to replace? Because we don't have this never-ending pool of talent out there.
Not to mention the Great Resignation, right?
Oh, that's
That's just another whole.
So, I understand we're flipping. So,
Yeah, but this is good. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, there's a path here, people. Right now, we're talking about the Great Resignation, and I'm talking to CEOs that are going, Chris, look, we're overstretched because we're going through growth. It's a great time for our industry, but we can't find a talent. So what's happening now is they're going, well, because they're stressed and they're overwhelmed, at risk of burnout, they're starting to look elsewhere. Hey, look, company B across the road is having a great time. They're doing really well. Everyone's smiling. I think I'm going to go across the road. Oh, and by the way, I'm probably going to get a 15 grand pay rise for the same position because right now they're paying more to attract the talent. So they go across the road, they put 15 grand in their pocket, but it's the same. And we've got this unsustainable salary rise going on right now to try and hold on to talent because they think money's the answer, and it's not.
No.
And so this great resignation is, okay, we're coming out of this bubble. We need to create some sort of movement and some fulfillment and joy. And we think that moving somewhere and life's too short and it's all going to answer all the questions. So there'll be a settling period after the great resignation if it happens. I'm curious to see the human element of, I'm just really glad I got a job. I'm just really glad I'm employed right now. And we'll see who the great leaders were through this unprecedented time to see who holds on to their talent.
What's the settling period look like? Like, what do you...
That's different for different people and different markets. So tourism, hospitality, they've been stuttering along for far too long. And I hope they come out the gates and absolutely go gangbuster.
Yeah.
But I don't know where they're going to get their people from. There are other industries like construction in certain states that have been, again, held back. Logistically can't get supplies to be able to deliver. So they've got pipelines of work lined up, which is fantastic for any business. But again, they're being held back. I was speaking to someone in IT. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The growth in that area is phenomenal.
That's the 15 grand area that you're talking about. Sometimes
it actually was, yeah.
Yeah, there's and he's probably going to be listening to this podcast. I know of someone who lost someone in his team. Director lost someone in his team. That's Santos, one of the big obviously gas companies offered this person to come into their IT team to lead their IT team for $70,000 more. $70,000.
Yeah.
How do you compete with that as
You-
a small business?
you can't.
You can't.
But how sustainable is it?
Well, that's right.
And the fear is always the smaller businesses.
Mm.
How are they going to survive? So
Yeah.
we're in a startup capital.
Yeah.
We really want these companies to go through huge growth, but with no talent.
Yeah.
If that's not a cocktail for burnout, I don't know what is.
And so this is where employee value proposition comes in. You offer a whole bunch of different things, but do you feel that offering the stress work that you do, and we're getting there, right? We're getting to that
We're back.
We're back. The work that you do and offering that to the businesses, do you feel that's part of that employee value proposition? Who do you feel that benefits more, the business or the employer?
Great question.
Yeah.
So as we gather data, I work for the individual, but I get paid by the corporation or the organization. And so I have to add value to both. My whole thing, if you look at my profile, my history, it's all about working with individuals to look at how we support them. So I need to raise the self-awareness of the individual and give them tools that they can tap into to manage themselves.
Yep.
In the same breath, I need to give data sets and value to the organization so they can make informed business decisions, such as you're at a breaking point with team A and team B. Now, what the business decides to do about that, well, it depends on the size of the business, the money pot, everything else that goes in with that conversation. But I need to be able to create value and insights for organizations so they can see the current state and also over time predict where breaking points might turn up within their organization. Okay, we can see that at this certain point during this certain level of transaction, they're at a stretch. You know, I don't know, HR's having a great time over there.
Yeah.
They're trying to put out fires. Health and safety are over there trying to put out fires. Sales are going through the roof. Operations are collapsing. That's a horrible cocktail to have in a business.
Yeah.
And so with the new arm of the business that we're creating, we're able to use medical grade technology to be able to use camera tech to now look at mapping stress for individuals, where we can now send you, almost risk stratification protocols to say, hey, how are you looking after yourself? What's going on for you right now? We're trying to support the individual. And that's the side of the business now that I'm really pushing into.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, we've got lots of different tools we can use, but we always rely on the organization to give us fruit bowls or come up with the solution we need. Yeah. And I've done it. So I used to be pulled into large organizations. Hey, Chris, talk to us about stress. And you've got 2 hours. And then you go in, you deliver 2 hours, and then you walk out the front door, and that's it.
And everyone's stress-free.
That's it. Solved. Well done, Chris Wilson.
We'll dive into that, but I really want to go back to the tools that you said that you give these people, and it's not the fruit bowls. I mean, I think we should. Oh, yeah, I mean, it can be. I mean, food will definitely, obviously, have an element.
Exactly. Right.
I kind of want to go down to like a scenario time, so to speak, and then we can talk about the tools for those individuals. So scenario is I've got 2 employees, both doing the exact same work. One, they're both very, very busy individuals, obviously, with the shortage of talent. They're both overwhelmed with work. However, one of these people manages to get through, go to bed each night, have a wine, come back the next morning, and they get on with it, I guess, if that's the right way of saying it. Person number 2 goes completely opposite direction, and they go down the burnout path. How do I, as a leader, manage that situation when it's clearly, well, in my head, it's clearly not the work because one person's fine, the second person isn't. Does it then start? Is it purely what do I do? Where do I go?
That's right.
Yeah.
So what we're unraveling here is the complexity of the individual is the hardest issue to solve.
Yeah.
So if I was to take confidence,
Mm-hmm.
let's take that. Confidence is situational. So we've got people who are confident in certain scenarios and confident in, or less confident in others. And so we can boost someone's confidence, but only in certain scenarios. And then there's mastery and everything else that comes in with raising confidence. So that's just one thing. If we take the complexity of stress and burnout and what people's triggers are, well, I'm going to throw a curveball at myself here. Why is it the organization's responsibility to solve that for the individual?
Yeah. I think this is kind of where I was going to end up.
Yeah.
Is that it seems almost unfair that someone can bring their personal life into a work scenario. I know you're saying they are blended now, and I absolutely agree. But the stress, and I think this comes back to the extra weight that the leader puts on could break the is the piece of straw that broke the camel's back, right?
Well, okay. So it's as a leader, it's my responsibility to run this 30-person team, and I'm supposed to know every one of those people intricately and know when they're not feeling good and when they're feeling great. That's impossible.
It's impossible.
Unless I'm having, one-on-one meetings every other day with these people, how can I track that?
But even then, if you're not great at reading signs,
well, then you got like IQ, EQ, everything else that goes with it.
Exactly.
And by the way, I've still got a 40-hour-a-week job to do, as well as lead the team. That's often, I don't have someone sitting in an office going, "Hey, my job is to make sure that everyone's okay." Often, what I find is, unfortunately, it's palmed off to HR. And so I lead the team from a performance base where it's systems, process, and KPIs. But any soft, I was going to swear then, that soft, fluffy stuff, you need to go and speak to HR. Yeah. And there's the disconnect right there.
Yeah.
And then if I show them that I'm not as good as, we're both doing the same job, we're both on the same salary. If I show weakness, well, then I'm at risk. I'm at risk from but I'm at risk of being ostracized because I'm not good enough and I won't fit in with the group. I'm also at risk of losing my security, finance. So I'll tell you what I do. I just crack on and I won't tell anyone. And we've got this horrible cocktail. We are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to tackle stress, and the numbers aren't getting any better. It's not working. The fruit bowl is one tool. I've got very beautiful friends who are mindfulness coaches, breathwork coaches, resilience coaches, grit gurus. They're all tools. They're all one piece of a very complex puzzle.
I agree. I've often said this. This is something I often speak about. I'm pretty passionate about that. If you are going to rely on purely the learnings you get through the work environment, then you're really putting a limit on your ability and potential. I think that I know that if you are investing time into yourself, whether it is through yoga and breathing and mindfulness or reading a book on time management or reading a book on stoicism or philosophy or whatever it might be, you are improving your thought process, you are improving your perspective, you are improving your attitude, your behavior. You have to do that outside of the work environment. You have to put time and effort into yourself through, and I believe if you do that, then you reduce the chances of being burnt out and stressed because you are more aware. You're able to manage it better. It doesn't say you're never going to get there, but it definitely, I do believe it actually has to have an impact.
Yes, exactly right. And so the whole purpose I'm trying to achieve here is that we can inform people to make decisions for themselves. I can raise your self-awareness by putting data in front of you. I didn't appreciate what I had with the saliva kits and with the biomarkers, because once you quantify it and put it in front of people, you knock down all the BS. I'm doing fine. Everything's great. yes, everything's fantastic, but your profile's showing me this. Yeah, actually, I'm not sleeping at night. I'm struggling a bit. And they start to unravel.
Yeah.
So my job is not to tell people how stressed they are. They kind of know that already.
Just to stop them lying to themselves.
It's to take action a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you do those saliva kits, let's use a round number of 100 people. What percentage would be stressed versus?
Do you know
on average?
that's what led me to the next step in my business, is that it depends on time of year and it depends on the industry
Oh,
and
really?
depends on the position within the organization
Okay.
and the size of the organization.
There's about 15 different questions that come out of that.
So people think that leaders are more stressed, whereas from a hierarchical point of view, from our human makeup, as the lower down the pecking order, the higher the perception of stress.
Oh, really?
I know,
Why is that?
because we're lower down.
It's an ego thing? Or is it?
Not ego. Maybe we use the ego term. So we're mammals that are built in a hierarchical, top dog, alpha male, need to be top of the tree, matriarch, patriarch, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Our status is determined by our position. And so even though there's more pressure put on leaders from the organization, they're subsidized with much higher pay packets, higher status, autonomy, contribution to the organization. All these other factors come into play about how we perceive stress. That threw a curveball, didn't it?
Well, it did. Because it's got me thinking now, does that... So, okay, I'm going to ask this, and this might be a very, very naive question. But if you're not productive at your job, the chances are you're going to be more stressed. Is that a myth?
Well, it depends if stress is causing the lack of production or whether it is, I don't know, lack of engagement, disinterest, disconnect.
Well, I think where I was going with that is that it's shit, I've got no idea what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Or I'm not efficient as this next person who's next to me. I'm clearly getting away with a lot, therefore I put a whole bunch of extra stress.
So there's lots of different stuff in there. One is, if you're not as good as the person sitting next to you, what are you doing about that?
Yeah, well, that's true.
And if you don't believe that, there's a big stressor inside our own conscience about, I'm getting paid as much as him, but I know he's better than me, or she's actually really good. I'm not going to bother though, because she'll carry me. We know it and we get away with it, mainly because we can. It's not identified. And the person who leaves the organization, the person carrying everyone else.
Correct.
They can't deal with it. Yeah. I'm sitting here having a great time. So you've got, this conversation is very broad and many different aspects impact everything in it. But we know there are people in organizations that don't want to do a lot for their dollar. Okay, is that because they're burnt out and stressed? No. It's because they don't have motivation, drive, willingness, conscientiousness, all those other factors. And so we're not talking about them. Where burnout comes in is people who are normally conscientious and overreach to please. I'll give you an example.
Go for it.
I'm going to risk myself here.
Do it. I love it.
My wife.
Uh-oh, no.
Because
put the podcast on pause, Gabs.
I'll tell you why. Is because she there's a lot of pressure on Kate because of the visa.
Yeah.
So she wants to be the perfect employee because that's security.
Yeah.
She wants to be the perfect agent because she wants to please her vendors. The perfect wife, perfect mother, the perfect friend. So she completely overreaches because her characteristics, her personality is to enjoy people loving what she does. So she overreaches in all aspects. She's at risk. She's conscientious. She's agreeable.
Yeah.
These are people we love in our organizations. but they'll keep giving and we'll keep taking because they're great.
The people keep saying yes.
Yep. And these people, when they overreach, are normally the ones that will disappear pretty quick.
So is the answer to not be conscientious? Like, are they like to avoid burnout? I mean, what is the answer for those people who are approval seeking?
Well, for those, it's understanding that we're back to the early warning signs again. So understanding that when you've done too much or when you're overreaching. So if we talk about overreaching and then into overwhelm and then into burnout, what we want to be able to do is in high performance, we need to play on the edge. We're very close to overwhelm and burnout constantly because it's how we achieve and are successful. It's those people who ignore. So we can go in, we can push ourselves to a limit. Like there's a deadline coming up, we're all going to go hands on deck. Right now during COVID, a lot of CEOs are asking people to get into the trenches with them. Come on, we've got to fight for this. They're going, yeah, okay, let's go for it. They know they're not sleeping at night. They know they're not looking after themselves. The issue we've got is they've accumulated debt. When are they going to repay that debt back? Now, if we don't allocate time and give them space and resources and allow them to do that, then they're going to burn out. And so no one is saying that we have to be fluffy around our employees. I'm the opposite to that. I don't go in there and say, hey, burnout's really bad, and why don't we just all slow down and calm down? No, that's not the conversation. The conversation is we want you going fast. We want you digging in, pushing in. I don't like the word hustle and all that crap, but we want you working hard and fast. But you've got to have the space and capacity to go, I need to step off. In sport, I love a sporting analogy.
Let's do it.
We periodize training programs into macro, meso, and micro cycles. I know when you're going to perform. I know when the competitions are coming up, and I plan and map everything. I know all the skills, techniques you need. I know how to train them and measure them. I do a measure before and a measure after with a training intervention in between so we can measure how much you've improved. Great. So why don't we do that in business? Because you're in competition mode all the time.
24 hours almost.
Yeah. An athlete saw sit on the bench. Not feeling good, let's regress the training load this week. Because I get this a lot. We want corporate athletes. Do we? Do you really? Okay, so allocate a 6-week training load and then get them to calm down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, we can't do that. Lack of productivity. Well, then you're not serious about it because you want them to go 110% 5 days a week. You're lucky.
Yeah.
With no adequate recovery. And this whole self piece is relevant because...
And that's how you ping your hamstring, right?
That's right. When at my age,
yeah,
I pull a heartstring these days. Getting out of bed.
I was walking the other day and literally walking down the road, minding my own business, and my back just started spasming.
Someone just punched me in the back.
It felt like a dagger went through my back. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
That's a voodoo doll somewhere, my friend.
100%. Well, you're right, because if you think about it, if an athlete, I'm thinking about an AFL footballer, right? An athlete pulls up, hang on, early warning sign, my hamstring's a bit tight.
Yep.
I'm going to have a week off.
Yep.
I mean, how do we use that model in business?
Yeah. So what's the sustainable workload for an individual?
Who knows?
Well, that's what we're mapping.
Each individual is different, though. Yeah.
Exactly.
But is it then? Oh, okay. This opens up a can of worms. So, is it if one individual can do 70 hours a week and the other one can only do 30 hours a week? How do you manage that? And where does fairness come into it?
Fairness is the key, isn't it? How do we remunerate that? So, my argument is, if that person needs 70 hours a week to do the same job, then that's a productivity system process issue.
Yeah.
If they're in sales, so sales is a fascinating animal, isn't it? Because the more hours I put in, technically, the more money I earn. Okay, so the risk of burnout in sales is huge.
Yeah.
I'm around the real estate circles. But if you're going to pay me a salary, you got one person who is working the 70 hours to do their job and do it very well, and someone who can't do that, then how are you as a leader going to fix that? And how do we then penalize or promote those individuals? So you're single, you're young, energetic, you're willing to do 70 hours a week to go up the career ladder. I'm middle-aged, frumpy. I'm talking about myself here. I've got children, all the rest of it. I'm not willing to do 70 hours a week for the organization because I want to go home and see my family. What does that mean? So we're mixing the conversation between, promoting those who can and demoting those who can't, or holding people back, or what about my skill set? Energy and effort and hours served versus the experience I've got.
Yeah.
How do we value that? So it's a tough one to answer from a sense of burnout and stress. But inevitably, those people who have got the energy will often climb the ladder quicker.
Yeah. Until they burn out.
Yeah.
Well, possibly. So going back to the question of the percentage, right, which we never got there, and you said you got onto your next part of your business. We talk about 100 people. You've tested 100 of these people.
Yeah.
What would your average be in a percentage-wise of people who are suffering from a form of stress or burnout?
Okay.
And is there I'm thinking of a diagram where it's white, then it goes orange, or green, then it goes orange, then red.
Yeah. Okay. So we've actually got those. I've got norm values. We've been collecting data from the US, the UK, and Australia.
Yep.
And so when I plot, I know this is an audio podcast, so no visuals for people. But what you can imagine is we take 5 different time point collections. So we take 5 different samples in one day, and we can plot your cortisol awakening response, what happened in the morning, where that goes to, and then how that comes down, and then what it looks like at night. In short, you've got a diurnal pattern and a nocturnal pattern. You've got a day and a night pattern. This is going to lead us down a whole different path, by the way. Good. And then we've got the circadian rhythm, which is what most people, this is the body clock piece in the body. Business fights the body clock. There's one load of stress. So if I look at my body's natural rhythm, I'll wake up, I'll get a huge cortisol spike. The drivers in the body will start to ignite and get the body going. When I measure this in corporates, I want to look at how high or what's the starting point when you wake up, because your first release of cortisol, probably about 2 or 3 in the morning, depends on what time you sleep, which is when we all wake up, need a pee, and normally can't go back to sleep.
That's me every night.
Yep. So you've got your first release of...
we can talk about that for an hour, I think. Anyway, keep going.
You hurt your back as you sprint to the toilet.
I walked into the door.
So we got our first release of cortisol, probably about 2 or 3 in the morning, our third phase of sleep cycle. Once we have that release, the systems in the body are starting to be driven. Yeah. Then when I wake up, my eyes open, we get our second release and we get a spike of cortisol. So we're ready to tackle the day. What I'm measuring is how high that spike is. So if I called it here we go again moment, often how I talk to clients. Your body, you're waking up and you're going, uh-oh, here we go again. And we get this huge drive to try and tackle the day and tolerate the day because the stress loads are really high.
Is it a here we go again moment of excitement or of a Groundhog Day?
Well, that depends. So I need to contextualize why we're seeing that. I don't want, people often think they want zero cortisol. Cortisol is bad. And that's furthest from the truth. So your question was what percentage? So I see a lot of people who have a high cortisol awakening response in the morning. Yeah. Now, that's completely skewed because the people I work with are leaders, execs. I wouldn't get called in to go and work with people who work in, on the forward-facing part of the business. I often get called into leadership teams. Yeah. However, there's an optimal level of cortisol that we require. I want you to have the drivers on. I want you to get, accelerate into your day because you've got things to do. But what I don't want is this huge acceleration. And I won't talk about nanomoles and the measurements, but you get this huge acceleration because by lunchtime, we get this huge drop. Now, I don't know about you, but when I talk to organizations, they call it 2 p.m. itis or 1 p.m. itis, where they hit that time of the day and they feel completely knackered.
It's a coffee time. It's when you need a coffee.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So caffeine, stimulant.
Yeah.
You're trying to pick yourself back up again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've lost this energy pathway. Remember, cortisol's primary purpose is to create energy. But the natural body rhythms means that we get this huge spike, and then by lunchtime, we get this huge drop. So we've lost the energy pathway. Then we need to pick ourselves up, and we need to try and, how am I going to get through the day? I was sitting in a meeting, and someone was falling asleep at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And you're going, and
how's this possible?
Yeah.
Have the Italians got it right there when they have their mid-afternoon siesta?
I am going to deny all. There is no evidence to suggest, but it's a stimulant. Normally, unfortunately, we go for caffeine and sugar.
Yeah.
We'll have the chocolate bar at that time of the afternoon. Yeah, it's a false stimulant. The idea is not to try and pick yourself up so you can get to the end of your workday. The idea is to suppress the cortisol rise in the morning.
How do you do that?
Join my program. No.
Well,
you've got
that, and just give us a little hint right now.
Well, once we work out your rhythm, your pattern in the body, we can start to work with the body to be able to normalize the pattern so you can function and it's sustainable. Now that's poxy speak, but basically saying if you're spiking too high, you get drops. You're on this high, low. You're at risk because remember what you're doing is you're constantly spending resources to get that high level of cortisol. Cortisol steal is very real. So we start to steal the backbone of hormones. We steal it to prioritize cortisol because cortisol is a hormone. So that means all the other hormones in the body are being neglected because our primary focus is to create cortisol. Now, if we can reduce your cortisol spike, you'll actually find that your other hormones will start to normalize.
Scenario time again.
We haven't even talked about the percentage thing yet.
I want to ask this question, then we can get back into the...
Go on.
This is like a long-winded TV series where people have to,
Stay tuned, folks.
If we've got two people, parallel universe now.
Okay.
The exact same person.
Big Bang Theory.
Exactly. In the same work, like a parallel universe, everything is the same. Their work is the same. Their wife, their kids, the husband or wife, their kids, whatever it might be. Whole life is the same, except for their sleeping patterns are different.
Man. Okay.
So one gets 8 hours of sleep, one gets 5 hours of sleep each night. Who is at more risk of burnout? And does sleep have that?
100%.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I'm very conscious about how I'm not answering any of your questions today. To answer your question, who is at more at risk of burnout? I don't know. It's the quality of sleep. So certain things are happening in the brain when you allow yourself to get into deep sleep. And if we looked at the first 2 to 3 phases or cycles of sleep, that's where the magic happens, if you like. So you can wake up after 4, 5, 6 hours worth of sleep, still function. 8 hours of being in bed and being asleep, but not with poor quality, then you're more at risk.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to the percentage. Just tell us the answer. What's the percentage?
I would say the majority of my clients would go into a high cortisol state. There's only been a very small percentage of, let's say, about 15 to 20% that are on the verge of burnout.
Okay.
Because often people think it's a cliff. You push, and you fall off, and that's not true. What we'll have is people who remain in high stress states for long periods of time, and their body will slowly just run out of resources. And so we see emotional regulation starts to drop. We see other functions, sleep, and we start to physiological functions in the body start to deteriorate. Stomach headaches. We get the reason why I say early warning signs is I talk about physical, mental, and emotional. How do you know when you're getting stressed? And how do you know what are your signs? Grinding your teeth, sweating, snapping when you're angry. And it's different for a lot of people. I'd often, in a workshop, I get people to close their eyes and they point when they're stressed. They point or touch their body where they feel the stress. Some people say shoulders, some people say head, some people say stomach, lower back. Chronic pain is associated with stress. Anyway, that's another.
I get really anxious.
Hmm.
Yeah, my stomach, I get it. Yeah, I can almost feel those. I don't know if you call them butterflies. It sounds almost nice, doesn't it? Really, from a butterfly point of view.
Fluffy little butterflies.
Yeah, but I know, and then I get that almost a brain fog.
Yep.
I just cannot concentrate. Cannot nail something down, or I cannot come to an answer or a conclusion, or give people any form of.
So if I explain that to the general public, you've got layers in the brain, and then they have arguments, which is really unfortunate. Where I play is in the limbic or the mammalian brain. So we look at the hypothalamus, the amygdala, the thalamus, and the hippocampus. So I work in the space that regulates sleep, rhythms, energy. The brain will prioritize that space, that complex inside the brain over your executive function, which is the prefrontal cortex. That driver, that stress response, if I get into a high stress state, like, oh my God, and I start to panic or get anxious, the focus will be on that central part of the brain. So I lose the analytical puzzle solving, even the basic stuff like everything we should know. I forgot what cortisol done once when I sat outside a meeting for a big, he introduced me. I don't know, we've got some guy coming in. I don't know what he's going to talk about, stress or something. And this was a huge corporation, big boardroom. And I just panicked. I was like, oh man, what? And then I forgot, what does cortisol do? And I had to use breath work and slow my mind down to be able to tap back into my executive function, prefrontal cortex, So yeah, it happens. Absolutely. And we talk about the gut, the heart, and the brain and how they're connected. And you've got your instinctive, your emotional, and your logical. And very real when it comes to stress regulation.
All right, scenario time again. no, not scenario time. Almost Australianism, right? We're in Australia, and we've got a team member that is. I'm a leader, and I've got a team member that is what I perceive is suffering as burnout. We're self-diagnosing. This person's in a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
Go away for a holiday, mate. You'll be right.
Yeah.
Is that a fix?
For some, yeah, it can be. So it's a forced reset. It depends how relaxing the holiday is, to be honest. But disconnecting and getting out of the stressful scenario, if work is the scenario, look, is it a fix? No, because in 2 weeks' time, you're going to come back into the same boiling pot. If that person's in an environment where they can't cope, whether it be systems breakdown, whether it be, I don't know, leadership issues, workplace bully, I don't know, you can go anywhere with that. If it's the workplace that's the cause of the stress, then no. You're avoiding. No one's dealing with anything. They're just avoiding. And so if I've got someone in a workplace that is highly stressed, I need to understand what it is that's going on for them. It could be external. They might need support. Could be having a breakup. Kids could be having trouble at school, taking my mind off things, making work harder. That doesn't mean it's not important or they shouldn't think about it because they're at work. And that's often the solution that I find. People will use language like I feel stuck, feel boggy is common. I, I, I don't feel like I can keep going. And a simple solution like trying to give someone back some control and can actually be a really effective way of just giving them some confidence back to go, okay, I've got this. Um, One of the things I talk about on my program or when I work with people who are often they call me and say, you know, I need to speak to you. And they're already so far gone, like it's really difficult. So one of the things I talk about is the non-negotiables. And the first one is just putting your trainers on first thing in the morning. And I don't say you've got to go run a marathon or anything like that. Just got to put your trainers next to your bed and get them on.
Tiny habits.
Yeah. And the reason why I do that is that before I get to that point, they've already told me all the reasons why they don't sleep at night. So if they wake up or they're in bed and they're knackered, and then they don't have time because as soon as they get up, the alarm goes off. They've got 20 minutes before they got to get in the car and go. So they give me all these reasons why it won't work. And then what I do is I explain to them about how burning cortisol off in the morning can actually stop that overwhelmed feeling before they get to work. Simple. I'm not saying you have to go and smash a CrossFit session. That's actually complete opposite. Because there's another conversation. People who are highly competitive go, well, I'm highly stressed. I'm going to go smash a gym session. Well, actually, you're forcing yourself you're taking longer to recover because you're overreaching on the physiological side. So, just getting people to try and think about ways in which you can give them some sense of control back is really important.
What is there a fine line between burnout and giving up? Like, and I want to rephrase it, and I don't really know how to ask this without sounding sort of I guess. I'm one of those people that just keep pushing myself. And I know my boundaries, I know my limits, and I know those early warning signs, and I can manage it. I've never suffered burnout because I believe I can manage, and I believe I have that ability. Not to say that I might never or whatever, I don't know. But I know a lot of situations where I've seen people push and they get to a point of being uncomfortable because it's new territory.
Yep.
Therefore, they then say, this is stressing me out, and then they stop.
Yep.
And then I always get frustrated with those people because I feel like they've, stopped short of the gold mine, so to speak. Is there a fine line when you work with leaders and you work with businesses that you see that situation happen a lot, where people actually really don't know the boundaries of where they can play?
So, no, I don't see that a lot because the people who reach out to me are already high up, which means they're a certain type of animal, which means they are highly competitive, driven, focused. So my conversations with these people are, they overreach and then their performance drops.
Okay.
So there's one conversation. The other conversation is, we need people to go through the trenches and to experience what it's like because we're increasing their resilience. All the other things that we discuss. And so fitness is a classic. Let's start there. So when people talk about resilience, they always talk about the mental resilience piece, and I don't. I talk about physical resilience. Now, if we talk about resilience, we can get to a cellular level. So your ability to cope with, the demands that's going on right now, it causes changes in the body. Like you get capillarization, you get mitochondrial recruitment or development or, all these things. We start to create more enzymes because we know that we're ready to turn over more energy. And that's a simple sporting context where, okay, you start off walking, then you learn to jog, and then you learn to run. It's the same. It's the same on the mental capacity as well. I need you to get in there and experience what it's like, but I also need to give you space to be able to come off. Okay, get in there, work hard, but we need to have recovery from that. Leaders, quality leaders, understand this and give and allocate time for their teams to be able to do that. Let's go in, let's work bloody hard, let's support each other, let's step off, let's take a break, catch our breath, let's go again. We're going back in. And we've got this rhythm going, almost a sprint recovery rhythm.
Yeah.
Look, there's a whole conversation in there about how we change the flow and rhythm of business and how we can use that to then allow our people to be able to experience, adapt, recover, and push harder. And I use the sporting context or even the fitness context because it takes time for people to learn that muscle, and not everyone is into it. I don't like this. It's uncomfortable. I just want to do my job and go home.
Yeah.
Great. Then we've got a role for you. Perfect. And I almost appreciate that.
Yeah.
But then we've got those people who, this is always my fear, the people who really want it, who really want to push, but burn out and then get chucked out the other side.
Yeah.
I believe that's totally unfair. And one of my big things is, okay, so they just didn't have the right support mechanisms around them. They had all the right, they were bloody good for your team. They'd be an absolute talent inside your organization, but they burnt out. We kick them to the curb. Next. No. What about these people? If we'd have just not allowed that to happen, you would have an awesome person in your team right now. And so I can't help everyone. I get it. Some people just don't want to be leaders. And I get that. I appreciate that. Some people are quite content, but those who do want it, we need to protect them. And if we can identify the emerging talent inside our organization and nurture and support them to be able to push hard, understand the rules, put strategies in place to give them the self-awareness to stop that burnout and that overwhelm. We know this. People are overwhelmed and burnt out, the performance drops. So they're no good to us anyway. In fact, they're negatively impacting our organizations. So I don't know why leaders wouldn't do this. And then, where do we go? Is it a time issue? Is it a money issue? Is it a lack of understanding, an educational gap? I don't know the answers to that either.
Do you know when you do your testing and either the facial recognition or the saliva test, either or?
It's not facial recognition. That's Big Brother stuff. We're using camera tech.
Camera tech, I should say. It's on the face, though, isn't it?
You can.
In the feet. Yeah, it's on.
Excuse me, Mr. Wilson. Would you just come with us, please?
That's right. So, all right, using technology,
thank you,
and saliva kits, in the ways that you would review leaders, people, whoever is having these tests. Is it situational and scenario based? Is it a particular point in time? Does it change as they go up the ladder? So you get an emerging leader, you take some tests, you go, right, this is the way we need to manage this emerging leader for the next how long? Like, what does that look like until there's more and more stress placed on it? Do things change?
Always.
Yeah.
It's like markets change, people change. I don't know. This emerging leader, let's say it's a young man or woman that we recognize as amazing and we want to allow them to move up in the organization. No, they get married, they have children, life changes. What we can do is we can give them the tools and the self-awareness. I keep using that word purposefully. It's no one else's responsibility but yours. And when people feel trapped that they can't make a choice for themselves, they lose that control because of fear. I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my security, and we overreach. Then that for me is the biggest barrier we face right now. Is how do we empower people to be able to take control of their decision making? Working from home's been great for that. No one is watching me or standing over me. The flip side of that is people are overreaching to justify their pay packet. We know the boundaries of going, and I do get it. I see it a lot. So, we need to allow people to either come back to the office because being at home is actually a stressor for people.
Mm-hmm.
Versus people are going, oh, it's great at home. I can sit in my pajamas and, I still get my work done.
Yeah, I'm not driving 2 hours a day.
Yeah, I'm not losing time in the
Yeah.
commute. So there's an
Did my
interest.
washing and lunch break.
Well, that's right. Go to my favorite cafe.
Yeah, watch Netflix in the back. No,
Yeah,
no.
but people are being just as. So here lies an interesting conversation. You're just as productive at home than you are in the office, but you're doing it in 5 hours.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree.
There lies an issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I won't go there. It's not mine.
No. No. So do you pay people for the full 8 hours in?
Yeah.
You won't go there.
Or what were you doing at the office?
Yeah. Well, I think it's those. You can't take away the. I'm going to use the word brilliance of being in a room where people are talking and chatting, and there's a conversation going on about a piece of work where your ears prick up, and you've got this experienced person talking about this scenario of what they did with their client or whatever it might be, or how they handled a situation, and you can learn from that just off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
There is something in that which is brilliant, and that's what I love the work from home, and I agree with you that like I am so much more productive in my office at home than what I am in the office at work. However, when I'm in the office with work, and I know, and I've seen this across the board even with all our clients, those water cooler conversations or whatever they might be, the amount of learning that you can get from them and off the cut, or potential situations which have been avoided because there's this conversation. No, don't do that. I've already spoken to this person.
Yeah.
That's lost.
Yeah.
So there's this fine line there.
There's two things that have really stood out for me with working from home. One is I'm not getting the cues. So you're my boss, you're my leader, you're my confidant.
Mm-hmm.
I get cues. Hey, nice work. Or I get that, oh, yeah, Chris is doing really well. Or
pat in the back.
Whatever it might be. Or I can see you smile at me. There's lots of different ways in which we pick up cues. Your energy in the room tells me stuff. I don't get that at home. So I then create scenarios in my head about what I think is going on. You send me a text. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Daniel's moody.
I need to do more.
Have I done something wrong?
Yeah.
And so we overreach. I've got to make sure that I'm online, always available. I've got to make sure that they see that I'm doing a really good job.
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of being present in an office anymore. It's justified by your KPI, your numbers.
Oh, the amount of people I've heard say I feel guilty when I'm working from home.
Yeah.
Because it's that exact feeling.
So communication flow is one of or even a communication agreement, because we've got this idea that we need to respond immediately because someone else is waiting for us. And the other one is I need to be available whenever someone needs me.
Yeah.
And that's not doable.
No.
And it's unrealistic where people are now working. I work with people who work across different time zones.
Yeah.
So they're doing their normal working day and then getting up at 2 a.m. to join in with the Teams meeting because it's US or, wherever it might be. And there's no understanding about what the limits are to people's availability. And that working from home is almost exaggerated that, because you need to be in every meeting and be present. Because otherwise your brain will create scenarios around, oh my God, they might think I'm not there or I'm not interested, or which isn't true. But so this communication requirement, I call it an agreement because it needs to be agreed, a communication flow. Don't contact me during this time of the day because I'm doing this, or this is family time, or whatever rules you want to put in place.
Put your boundaries in place.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're always available at all times for everyone, and it's not sustainable.
It's hard work. They're going in a different direction.
Okay.
We see in sport, using sport, AFL, we saw in NFL, there's even a movie about it, Concussion, where players have got concussions in everyday sport. Especially, we're seeing so many cases come back now where AFL players have got headaches. We saw a law case in America based on the NFL where players were paid out millions purely because of these concussions, and the documents were sort of hidden, and now there's millions and millions of dollars being paid out to these players.
Yeah.
Do you fear that that could be a scenario for businesses with burnout, in the sense that if someone suffers from burnout today in 2021, that in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or 15, whatever that time period looks like, they're having relapses and they can pinpoint it back to 2021?
Do I fear it? No. I'm building a business on it.
Oh, you are.
So I'm talking to return to work, workers' comp.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to determine is that where does liability sit? And what I know is that stress and fatigue we're talking about 5 to 7% of claims are stress related, according to Return to Work or Work Safe. Sorry. Stress is only mental, according to their write-ups, their copy. So it's just a mental issue, which is, in my opinion, wrong. However, 5 to 7% or 7 to 10% of claims, 7 to 10% of claims 5 years ago. But now the Victorian government and the New South Wales government are putting in this business levy to tackle what is coming. So when I was talking to the workers' comp, return to work, the trajectory of stress-related claims they imagine will go through the roof. And so if businesses aren't trying to tackle stress in the workplace, their premiums will go up because they're more of a at-risk business. Then we put high-stress, high-risk environments. So the biggest claims at the moment, stress-related, are uniformed services, social workers, and all those people who give up their time to keep us safe and support us. But we can see the corporate entities now that are having to put systems in place to try and tackle this. Chronic stress load creates chronic illness. I used to work in cardiac rehab, so we know this. Now, if we can start to do historical claims like concussion in sport, how am I going to protect myself now in case someone comes back and says, you put me under undue stress, you forced me to do A, B, and C, you didn't support me when I was going through this phase. And that's why I'm trying to collect data based upon your current stress state.
How is that possible to pinpoint it just on the business if there are so many other factors?
Yeah. So is business just to blame?
Yeah.
No. Can business support people? Yes. So I don't know the answer where liability sits yet. All I know is that the way claims are changing and the way once we set this precedence with concussion, where do we go? Anyone that's had headaches, anyone that's not felt great since they stopped playing for your club. And then where do we go? Do we go just the elite sports players, or do we go all the way down through I play for heading in soccer. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
So they've done their first couple of games where there's been no heading allowed, and they've reduced heading in training. But what about the last 50 years of people playing soccer and who hopefully are still alive? Are they going to claim? So we're in this funny space. All I know is that if you don't have data sets to understand what your people are going through, ignorance is not the answer. It's not my fault I didn't know. So it's interesting you've asked me this question, because right at the beginning I said to you, I often get people going, I don't want to know. So, okay, not knowing isn't the answer.
Ignorance is not bliss. Yeah. I know of a scenario where, and this is in government, where a particular individual took stress leave and was off for 12 months. How is that at the business fault for someone being on stress leave? Like, why does the business need to wear that cost or even holding that person's position for 12 months plus?
That's right. So, what's the question is why do they?
Well, my
Because
question
employment
is,
law.
yeah, how does that even happen? I mean, clearly after 12 months, it's not the job that's causing the stress.
Well, is it taken them 12 months to recover?
Well, yeah, that's the other question.
Yeah, and I don't know this scenario,
Yeah, no.
but if I was to say the idea is to stop people from getting to that point, but then was it? And again, I'm not asking the question because I don't want to know the details. But if it was bullying or something along those lines, harassment in the workplace, then is the business at fault? The answer is yeah. So how long does that person take to recover? Depends on how severe it was. And, it's impossible to put, well, you've gone through burnout, so we'll give you 2 weeks off. Because some people could probably get back on track in maybe not 2 weeks, but in a short space of time.
Yeah.
Others may never recover
Okay.
because they can't get back on top of it.
Okay.
It's
So
traumatic.
there isn't a average.
Well, there
Well,
is
there is an
because
average, but yeah.
because in
Every
business we
individual
need
situation.
yeah
But if you go back to that harassment part, this again, I go back to the two people scenario. That same leader is treating two people exactly the same. One sees it as bullying, and the other one's like it's banter. Like where does that? Anyway, that's a HR issue.
yeah
But
that's you're taking me down a horrible path here.
no, I know.
I don't know the
It's
answers.
just it really. I fear for some of these business leaders because everyone's trying their best. Like we
Yeah.
work with leaders on a day-to-day basis. They're all trying their best. They're doing their best with what they've got.
Yeah.
And
it's not their sole role.
Yeah.
That people don't have just a role to understand your needs, your feelings, and that's situational as well. So you might, things have been accumulating. You might wake up in a bad mood, and I'm supposed to be empathetic and understand your needs and wants, and I have to change your day based upon, and it's impossible for me to manage that.
Yeah.
Because then I'm at a whim, aren't I, of very reactive to whatever side of the bed Daniel wakes up on.
Yeah.
And that's the worst case scenario because leaders don't do anything because they just focused on trying to please people. And we can't do it. It's not sustainable. I need to be able to manage myself. I'm back to here again. You managing me about whether I need time off or whether you're going to allow me time off to be able to get my head straight is a really difficult conversation because, well, I'm doing all right, so why aren't you? You're doing the same job as Daniel. He's traveling fine, so what's your problem? If you can't hack it, why don't you just get out? We're here, aren't we? It's horrible to hear, but it goes on a lot. Oh, God, Chris is slacking again. Well, okay, is Chris lazy or is Chris really struggling? Have you taken the time? How do we know? And inside of that, there's cultural, there's all these other conversations we can and need to have around this. My job is to just map and measure the current stress state of individuals because that gives us almost like a heat map about what's going on. If it's systemic, then we can have one conversation. If it's individuals, then we can work with individuals. If it's department, is it on systems and processes that are breaking down, inefficiencies? Is there roadblocks within the organization? So breaking down the heat maps of stress inside an organization gives us very valuable insights. And what we do is we do generic and blanket. Right, we're all going to do this. No, they don't need that. They're okay. Why don't you spend less money and more, not succinct, but more directed value and information to this group here because that's what they need. And so, efficiency, cost.
What's not a fix? Like, running a 2-hour resilience masterclass.
No, it's relevant, but you'll only ever impact a small percentage of the room. So, people are going to hate me for this, but
go for it.
I will. Asking someone to come in like me and to do a 2-hour workshop and with no follow-up and no engagement after.
It's a checkbox.
Yeah. what are we doing?
Mm.
You've just forgotten what I said as soon as you left the room.
Yeah.
And so then we start talking about programs. Like, how do we get in and work with teams ongoing? Why don't you pay me a retainer and I'll manage the stress and well-being of your teams? That's an option. But people go, it's a bit of a disruption and HR have got that covered. Okay. Well,
But do they?
yeah. I work with HR groups. I'm working with networks and associations in HR because right now they're medical experts. They're IR, ER gurus. And these are even generalist HRs that are now being thrown into this whole boiling pot of, right, I want half my workforce over there. I want the other half over there. They're not allowed to come in. They need to be in. What rules are we setting? And it's ever changing. And I'm watching HR teams. You'd know.
No, they're crying out for help.
Yeah.
We are coming to the end of the podcast. We always ask a few quick questions at the end, but I want to ask you one last question before we do that. If there was any low-hanging fruit for people who are listening right now that they can manage their stress with, what would your suggestion be?
The first thing I get people to do on my program is look at 5 arenas of life.
The 5
arenas
of life.
And so I start to look at you as a whole person rather than just a colleague or a worker or just a father or just a mother. And we start to look at, what were your parents' behaviors in that arena? So finance, health, personal development, career. My last one, love. Most important one. I forgot it. Oops, sorry.
So repeat them. Finance.
Yeah, finance, career, personal development, health, and love. Now, love is not just who you love. Love is passion and joy and all those things as well. Some people say their dog.
Yeah,
I find weird.
yeah, I do as well.
Yeah. So low-hanging fruit. I get people. I don't care how they do it. Some people do spreadsheets. Some people do A4 flip chart, whatever it is that they want, and they start to look at right on the left-hand side of the page. Write down your parents' behaviors in that arena. You might have a mum and a dad, and they both got completely different. Doesn't matter. Just write that down. Then write down your behaviors now in that arena. And then, what does the future you look like in that arena? What behaviors do you want to, incorporate to make you a better person, to be your whole self? And the reason why I do that is very conflicting. And it draws emotion. I need emotion in order to create behavior change, we need to get emotional about it. I won't give it all away. I do a piece with a measuring tape, and people always get upset because we work out that life's very short, and we don't like to, acknowledge that.
No.
And so, the low-hanging fruit for me is just take a snapshot of, the parent piece is about triggering. Not negative emotion. It's triggering, oh yeah, actually dad used to talk about this, or mum.
These are the habits I've picked up.
Yeah. And then this is me now. This is what I've adapted to. And then who do I need to be? And sometimes it's small changes, small shifts. You know what? I really wish I could sleep better. Okay. Let's start there at least. Or I really wish, I used to love running, but I don't do it anymore. Okay. Let's start to look at movement again. And all we're looking to do is empowering people to make small decisions. So there's the low-hanging fruit.
I love it. I think I've just done that naturally growing up. I've always just looked at my parents and gone, what are they doing that I could do better or improve on?
Yeah.
Or what frustrates me about the way they go about something, and how do I improve on that?
I'm an example of how you are not a slave to your parents. All this, I end up sounding like my mum sometimes, like when I tell my daughter to tidy up her room. But, I can make a promise to myself that I will be better at A, B, and C. And I thrive. I strive towards being better at being a dad, or being a better partner, or being more emotional, which apparently I'm emotionally dull, according to my wife,
Yeah.
or numb. I'm emotionally numb.
Numb.
Mm.
What's that mean? How do you?
I don't know. She's
Just no, smile.
I don't care if
Yeah.
I just she's all right. Okay,
Yeah.
everything's fine.
Yeah, we'll get on with
Your
it.
daughter's upset. Okay, so that could be good.
Yeah, the world's not ending.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. Oh, we could talk about that for about 2 hours, I think. Rightio, quick fire questions.
Okay.
And they are never quick fire. So
Have we answered any questions today? I don't know.
no, we'll be right.
Okay.
I think we got. Yeah, I think we did.
Okay. As long as we're adding some value.
We talked about some really powerful stuff. So
Okay.
I think with the ambiguity of it all, and every scenario is different, and every person has their own starting base. I think to answer one question, whether it's black or white, is too difficult. There's so much grey. So
well, that's the hardest part. We want the magic pill, like I said before. Is it Chris? Is it A or B? I don't know.
No.
And being a scientist as well, it's kind of like, depends.
Well,
depends.
It's an A. It could be an A today, but tomorrow it could be a B.
Yeah.
It really depends.
And how do we measure that?
Yeah.
And how do we? Yeah. Anyway,
100%.
quick fire.
Quick fire. What are you reading right now?
I've got a beautiful Risk Starts with People. Beautiful book by Lisa Sisson.
Risk Starts with People.
Yeah. It's a book that was sent to me so I could read it and give my opinion piece on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, great. Your opinion piece on the burnout element of risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really about, it's a practical piece. And so it's not like a fiction. It's very much about these are the things we believe, and this is where it starts, and this is where the risk sits in business. So I'm really enjoying plugging her book. If
you could recommend a book for people around stress, burnout, self-development, or improvement in this space, what would you recommend?
Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Okay. Why zebras don't get ulcers? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the chronic stress is very much a human. It's a human issue.
Yeah, okay.
We like to project and forward think, or we ruminate about the past. We have guilt and all these other emotions that really hold us back. And we don't have worry. The other mammals in the world don't have worry. Apes do. Sorry, that's not true.
Yeah.
But why zebras don't get ulcers is because they don't have chronic stress load.
They're just going on about their business.
Just do their day.
Live in the moment.
Apart from when a hippo jumps out of the water and tries to eat one.
Then it's shit, we better run.
Yeah, that's right. Then all their same process as us, the fight or flight response comes in.
So you're telling me that a zebra is not worried about that hippo jumping out?
No, they don't think about it.
At all?
Well, they know it's there.
And they just...
But they don't sit there like, okay, so...
Well, I'm not going to go drink because there's...
Exactly right.
In there. I need that water.
So there's an override, isn't there? So I know that there's a risk of me dying if I go for a drink, but I've got a drink. Oh, we could go anywhere with that, couldn't we?
Why didn't we talk about this for an hour? I'll start off with that question from now on. What's one lesson? This is a Brene Brown question.
Okay.
And I admit this because it's bloody good, so I'm going to ask it. What's one lesson that's taken you the longest to learn?
What you know today will be irrelevant tomorrow.
Blue pill, red pill, right?
Yeah. And I was trying to answer people's questions. Funny enough, I haven't, in a podcast scenario, but I was trying to solve and answer everyone's questions. But the complexity of people means that I've had to learn to look at larger groups of people as opposed to, just working with solving everyone's problems individually.
Yeah. So what you know today will be irrelevant tomorrow.
Can I contextualize that?
Yeah.
My business today is nothing like it started 5 years ago. Like I told you, I was in the back of my room.
Yeah.
And even last night, I was on a Teams meeting until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And the information that's coming out of that has blown my mind. So today I'm in a completely different scenario. And it's exciting,
Yeah.
but it's constantly changing.
What blew your mind?
The way in which the information we can get, the tech we can use, how we can layer that data to give insights. Yeah.
So Chris Wilson, the scientist, has gone tech on us.
Yeah, I had to in the end.
I mean, it's the way. I mean, with AI, let's utilize it, right?
So we can start. Oh God, no.
Just
I announced it on
no,
LinkedIn.
just do it.
I announced it on LinkedIn that I've joined. I've got this platform development, got a partnership going on.
Yeah.
So we're using data sets now where we can then start to do risk stratification, which I've said before, but we can do environmental stress. So we can put sensors in rooms. We can start to look at physiological. Then we can do risk stratification around your risk of cardiovascular disease. Then we've got electronic health records uploading. We've now got solutions where you don't need to go to a clinic. So I used to work in remote telehealth for cardiac. Someone who lives an hour and a half away from a clinic has to drive in to get their vitals done. They can now sit at home. And you look at this, I go, whoa, like the implications of this now are phenomenal. So my business as of yesterday compared to what my business can deliver today has changed.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. We've had a couple of podcasts, and I've mentioned him a few times. Dr. Terry Sweeney.
I need to meet him for a coffee.
You do,
Terry?
Yeah, reach out.
Yeah.
Like an intro.
Yeah.
Because the AI stuff they're doing in the digital health world is unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's the CEO of Digital Health CRC. They're doing some amazing stuff. And then we've got Matthew Michaelwitz, who's been on this show as well. He runs a company called Complexica, which is all about AI.
Yeah.
And you just see, and we actually had a podcast with Matthew about the rise of AI and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Thomas Mitchell from Biobank, they're the drug producing company for gut ulcers and stuff like that, utilizing AI in their work as well. I think for me, it just makes sense if you're going down that and you can collect data. For you, it just makes sense that if you're gathering that information on a larger scale and utilizing it from an environmental point of view, you could give some really excellent.
And I have to be, I'm very clear. It's all stress related for me. I don't want to.
No,
don't want to go medical or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my big thing.
Yeah,
I've got lots of big things. The interdisciplinary approach. So at the moment we've got lots of multidisciplinary. So you've got problem with your head, go see a psych. You've got problem with your gut, go and see a dietitian or. And I just look at this and go, still today we don't communicate. There is still this fractured, even in sport. The athlete is the center of what we're trying to achieve here in their performance. And yet the physios don't talk to the performance coaches, don't talk to the nutritionist. It's all segregated.
Siloed.
Yeah.
It's the same business.
Yeah. And I still see it today. And I assume that even big businesses have got this sorted out. And I go inside and I go, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. The bigger they are, the more siloed they are.
Yep.
There is a company that we work with that is 200,000 people strong. And you ask anyone in that business who's in charge of this, and they go, I got no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, you could speak to this person, and yet literally 16 people I've spoken to, and I still haven't hit the right person yet.
Yeah.
It is.
What a waste of everyone's time.
Well, but I mean, they're doing very, very well.
Yeah. No, it's not about success.
Yeah,
no,
that's
not
right.
that.
Yeah, I know, but it is just one of those companies that it's just really difficult to manage.
So now to the point is that the data sets, we've got to be careful because one of the big conversations that I'm trying to navigate is that how do I protect you and your data from the organization or anyone outside the organization using that against you?
Yeah.
So when we start to talk about stress, are we leaving people vulnerable because of their data? And that's the key thing that I'm very adamant about in everything that I do and everything we create is your data set and the alerts and the notifications have to.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to that question I asked you before. Do you start hiring people based on their risk burnout profile or whatever it might be? If you have that data, potentially could put people at risk at not getting work.
Yeah, that's right.
People might say, businesses might go, I'm not hiring.
Yep.
You're too much in the red for me.
And that completely contradicts
what you're trying to do.
Yep. Which is protect people.
Yeah. Next question is quick fire. If you could invite 3 people to dinner, who would you invite? And I'm just going to say, let's assume your wife is already invited.
Okay. She wasn't going to get invited anyway.
I got you. I gave you a get out of jail.
Sorry.
We can edit that
out. Is this thing on? Hello? 3 people.
3 people.
Huberman. Andrew Huberman.
Yes.
Why
Andrew Huberman?
He's a Stanford lecturer. His content online, it's all YouTube.
Yeah.
Probably an hour and a half to 2 hour videos on each. Just fascinating. And I like it because...
What's he specialise in?
Neuroscience, yeah.
I heard the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one.
Yeah.
Sapolsky, because I've heard him speak. So he wrote the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Okay.
And he would go out and live with the apes and the gorillas and just because he's mad. He looks mad and would be a lot of fun.
It'd be a good conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Who's my third person I would invite? I'm going down lots of different avenues. Frank Lampard.
Chelsea, great.
Get in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd sit with him.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Superstar. If you had access to a time machine, where would you go?
Future.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Or does it have to be past?
No, absolutely doesn't, because I wouldn't go back.
Yeah, I'm excited about. I don't dwell on the past, and I don't have regret and guilt and all those things. Mainly because I had to train myself, and it is a skill, so I had to train it. It's a waste of energy, and so I'm all about energy efficiencies, and I just have to really be brutally honest about the fact that what I've learned from the past is absolutely 100% relevant. But dwelling and ruminating and guilt and regret are a waste of my time, and I don't have a lot of time to give, so I don't waste it. So I'd like
need a time machine now.
Well, I'm gonna go to the future and look at the exciting stuff that's ahead of us.
How far ahead?
Not far. Yeah. Still, so it's relevant for me. So I'd still do the maybe 50 years. I might be dead then.
Yeah. If you had a crystal ball and you knew you're still alive.
Crystal balls and time machines. Yeah. Where are we going? Anywhere we like.
No stress here, mate. If you had one superpower, what would it be? If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Interesting. Can I tell you a story?
You can. Quick fire, but you can.
Sorry. Sitting around the lake in New Zealand, 3 people traveling. We asked this very same question, and I answered. One said he'd like to be invisible to watch people when they're naked, which is really weird.
It's very scary.
But I said healing hands.
Healing hands?
Yeah, so I'd like to have the power of healing through the hands. Oh. This was 20 years ago now, maybe longer, which led me on my way to become a therapist. So
yeah, great.
So that came true for me, my superpower.
Would you say that, is it like the moment you touch anything, it heals, or is it like an activated thing? It turns on. Are we
talking about the detail of the superpower
absolutely.
now?
I'm really interested in this.
No, I think healing should resonate rather than just a one-touch heal.
Okay.
Because if it resonates, I impact those around me as opposed to just the one person in front of me.
Okay. That's awesome. Can you heal? Can you heal people's thoughts, or is it just a physical thing?
Do you think they're separate?
No. Probably not. I don't know. I mean, what is a thought? It's not physical.
What dictates a thought? Like emotion. What is emotion? It's just a chemical. It's just a series of.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We need another hour. We're going to skip to the next question.
Okay.
Healing with your hands. And so that's led to where you are today, that one superpower question.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Still trying to protect and heal. It sounds poxy saying it out loud, but I don't even have, it's not on a mission statement or it's not my purpose or anything like that. It's just something I always end up falling into. Whether it be personal training was about, it's not about running marathons. It was always about getting people to improve and develop, and traveling with the squads. It was never really about winning matches. It was about supporting those young men and women who were going through that development.
Yeah.
I used to travel with the soccer squads.
Yeah.
And then setting up.
No Frank Lampards though.
Oh, there's plenty.
Yeah.
Not everyone makes it.
No.
Very small percentage.
What level did you travel with?
State.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Beautiful. Excellent. Right. Last question.
I'm trying to stop talking.
Last question. What's your best dad joke?
Am I allowed to say it?
Yes.
No. Is it a dad joke? All right, I'm going to say it because it's just my favourite. A blind man walks into a supermarket and he's swinging his guide dog around his head. Shop assistant says, "Excuse me, sir, what on earth are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm just having a look around."
Brilliant.
That's it.
It's going in the kit bag. That could possibly be the best dad joke we've had on the show. We've had 50-odd episodes. That's the best one yet.
I don't know if that's a dad joke. It's a bit, yeah.
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah, good.
Well, because it's
if
not,
you get upset,
knock
call Daniel.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time today, Chris. It's been an amazing chat. I think we've gone down a few rabbit holes. We've come back up and we've got there eventually, but I don't think we actually had a destination. We've just planning on talking and learning a little bit more about stress, the body, understanding ourselves and where we're off to. Thank you for all the work that you're doing out there in the world and helping people through this. I think it's definitely an area of need. And I hope to see your business flourish because I think people need help and businesses need to, at very least, understand what is happening with their people in this space.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love having these moments to be able to, just verbalize and share, and because the way your brain works and the way your thought process, I've got my own version of what I think people need and want, and then when you speak to people, you understand. Oh, that's how they perceive that, and that's what they're really interested in. When I first started my business, people often say to me, "Your language is so technical. How do I understand it?" And that was a big learning curve for me.
Yeah,
so
put it in layman's terms.
Any
plans for a book or anything like that?
I've already got the name of my book.
Yeah? What's that?
Oh, can I share?
Oh, it's up to you.
Push, Push, Break.
Oh, yes. Nice.
It's already in there.
It's in the works.
Oh, has been for years, man.
Takes time.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Where can we find you?
Stress-scientist.com is the website, so www. LinkedIn's the most active profile for me.
Yep. So Chris Wilson, the stress scientist.
Stress scientist. Yeah, you'll see my beautiful black and white James Bond picture.
Yeah.
Go and check it out.
You do look right.
Well, I was actually freezing my butt off, but that's okay.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Chris. We really appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thank you.